Before the light, it was dark, and darkness is peace in the street. The whole world's now scarred by the mark of the beast. Before the light, it was dark, and darkness is peace.
Okay, that's the intro. Crypto's crashing now. Just imagine if you were in control of a supercomputer. What would you do? Well, first of all, you'd have to design one. How would you design one? Here's my attempt to think it out logically. Now, I'll play this back through.
An error-corrected quantum computer. Today we are focused
If you're watching 2x, this will be 4x.
on enabling scientists and developers to access beyond classical computational resources. But we hope to one day create an error-corrected quantum computer. And success could mean everything from increasing battery efficiency to creating more sustainable energy to improved drug discovery and so much more.
It's kind of cool stuff. Now, what would the actual supercomputer do? If you were to be able to analyze certain, tiny bits of information, right? And you could currently, use an Excel spreadsheet and put in some numbers and run some calculations, perform some analysis that way. And that sounds pretty cool. But imagine you have a supercomputer, unlimited potential. What would you get it to do? This is what I would get it to do. Assuming it can hoover up everything that is on a microchip connected to the internet, connected to, or has a microchip in it, or has any form of, resistor in, or something like that. Now, imagine if you could take all that data, categorize it correctly, because that would be the hard part. How are you actually going to categorize all these reams of information? Imagine you have a big giant server and you have every single email ever sent to anyone. How are you going to categorize that? Not alphabetically? No. So you would then, most likely, that would be a difficult task. Maybe you implement AI of some sort to categorize, which could be a problem. Because what we're seeing now is this whole, I don't know what you call it, a problem. Is it going to be a good problem or a bad problem? Elon Musk thinks maybe, we should ease back on the training of ChatGPT or similar programs. He looks to develop, or is seeking to develop, a truth GPT. He points out that, he makes a good point though. He does point out when you search things on particular AI systems, the software is programmed by whoever it's programmed by. Now, they may input their own biases into it by the parameters they set, basically, So that would be the categorization issue. Now, imagine a supercomputer being able to literally borderline predict everything, borderline understand what it is that took place in the past and what could take place in the future. Because the ability would be, in theory, to imagine every possible future outcome within known to man. It would be insane. So you would have something, I call it the snowflake theory. Hear me out on this one. Imagine if you had the ability to determine where something in space and time was, from the largest thing you can think of in the known universe to the smallest, right? If you were able to have something that could analyze this, now this is a problem because they've run simulations, and when they increase the computing power, the simulation turns out differently. So at what point does infinite computing power, what point is that required to get the correct answer? Now, back to, I guess, I don't know if it's physics or what it would be, but you would basically have to calculate, where you are in this point in time, where every single atom is in that point of time. So to be able to calculate that, you would need to understand how the planets move. You would need to understand what causes the planets to move. You would need to understand what causes the universe to move. This would be a problem because you would have to understand things that are not known to this universe to be able to understand how a formation of a snowflake would take place. Now that sounds insane, but one day I would like to see us develop this sort of technology. If it hasn't already been done, which would be insane. Because pulling back on a level to not calculate the future movement of every single thing in the entire universe, which theoretically could be possible when you think about it, you would scale it back and have a supercomputer. Basically, what do you want to know about? You know, maybe you want to know about supply chains. If you had something that could hoover up every single bit of information, like the amount of gas that you used in a car, because that could impact the supply chain on the amount of fuel that was purchased by a petrol station, could impact the amount of orders that were put through the trucks that provided the petrol station to the storage place where they collect the petrol from. Just imagine that, and how far that goes, all the way back to the planning of how many mines or oil rigs would be needed to get how much oil for that particular year. It would be absolutely amazing to roll something like that out. If you were able to analyze every single supply chain, every single network, whether that be hidden or private, you would have to be known, because then the AI could input that data and then you could basically request it to output. What do you want to output? Okay, we want civil unrest. You would stoke these, pull these levers. You want higher regulation. We'd pull these levers. You want a economy that is more reliant on, I don't know, green energy or not green energy. You would have to pull certain levers. Now, currently, it doesn't seem like, although our time concept is different from, say, someone who exists for like, I don't know, 10,000 years or something. Their concept of time would be different to a normal human who lives to, say, 100, maybe 120. And, you know, the ability to watch over time things take place, the perception from someone who lives for a lot longer would have a lot longer time horizon, you know. So for instance, you're looking at trying to change the economy from, say, into completely green economical energy. What are you going to do? You're going to have your supercomputer pull some levers and say, all right, we're going to encourage this, we're going to encourage this, we're going to encourage this. For the most part, yeah, this is just my thoughts. Like, I thought, well, I may as well chuck it on the net because it's interesting. I find this stuff interesting. And then imagine, you know, being able to decide whatever you wanted to and pull the right levers to achieve a result. To me, that's what you would use a supercomputer for. Otherwise, you'd be basically, it's like it would be saying, if you can't influence the future, then the future is set. And therefore, the supercomputer that can predict this, or a machine that could predict this, would basically be what? Like a I don't know, a dictionary or a compass, you know, as opposed to a map on a journey. It would literally be a compass saying at this point in time this takes place no matter what. And I don't think that's the way the universe works. But, you know, what do I know? So back to supercomputers. So far, what we know, you know, the public, what I can look up on the internet, possibly connected to a supercomputer like Google search engines, all connected to multiple computers, connected to multiple accounts, which are able to sort data into relevant categories. So if I was completely anonymous, I would place into the computer, you know, my name, my date, everything, all my details about me. Then everything that I ever do on the internet, online or offline, would in some way, shape or form be linked to my profile, right? And so then you would hook that up and go, okay, if someone was trying to analyze me based on my online activity, they would be able to try and stimulate certain factors. Like, okay, this guy wants to do gardening or something, or looks up gardening, and so we'll send him some gardening ads. That's okay. Maybe when you're going through the YouTube algorithm, they might try and match you with some marketing, but also with some, you know, content that you may or may not like. Now, again, remembering the content that you consume on YouTube, for example, is heavily censored. So it goes back to the Elon Musk argument that this AI that we're creating would be basically programmed already, pre-programmed. So that's not what you want. So it's interesting to see how Elon Musk is going to try, and basically, I don't know what he's like, trying to save humanity, or is he trying to ultimately control humanity? Because, you know, it's almost like, okay, we're going to have two paths. One is we are going to be ruled by an AI which is programmed by people. Two, we're going to be ruled by AI which is programmed by someone who is going to program the AI in a more free and open manner. It's very both of them don't really sound like we have much choice in the matter. Now, imagine, okay, so you're going through, well, I go through the internet sometimes, I'm trying to get off of it, but connected to part of this supercomputer, we come across articles like this. So this is the reason why I find this interesting. This is why we individually differ from supercomputers. Although personally, I think we have the ability to, you know, maybe activate some more of our brain power, and not in terms of being able to remember longer and longer numbers, although that is part of it, but maybe we can tap into abilities that weren't previously known or that well talked about. It's like when you know, sometimes you can feel someone looking at you from afar, and you look over and there's someone staring at you. You can actually feel, I don't know what you'd call it. Some people call it chi. Even there's another terminology for it, I can't remember. I think even ninjas have a terminology for it, which differs to like the Chinese and stuff like that. And in other cultures, there's probably other, you know, energies that they talk about. Now, that I would say is different to supercomputers, but maybe we as humans are more able to develop these superpowers. But yet, what we're going to do, like, this is going to influence our future timeline, like literally. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to be heavily, from what I can see, and I'm a dumbass, what we're going to do is be heavily reliant on this AI. Now, it's really good because, you know, maybe you spend your whole life learning about law, become a lawyer, become a professor in law, and go to the peak of your career. Over time, if it's possible for a chatbot AI system to mimic your knowledge with more up-to-date abilities in terms of being able to feed it in and the latest textbook, and then it can pump out the latest answers instead of you having to manually research that might help you, right? But that's not going to encourage the field. It's not going to encourage people to study in the field of law. They're going to be like, okay, well, we can still study it, but we're going to be basically not verifying information pumped out by AI. So therefore, the programmers are going to be the ones, in essence, you know, guiding the future. Whether that be good or bad, it's, you know, yet to be seen. Some people are saying it could be apocalyptic. Some people are saying, you know, what if AI somehow controls militaries and basically it becomes like this AI versus that AI. Who knows? It could already be taking place for all we know. Quite often, we do see that information technologies are withheld from the public, and those technologies are the ones that, you know, get slow rolled out to the public over time. So how long have they had this, you know, particular version of AI for? How do we know this isn't like 20 years old? We don't. How do we know that there's not a more advanced version? And maybe it's starting to sound like, you know, Terminator with this AI in the sky. But how do we know that's not possible? You know, it could well be. How do you know these simulations aren't being run? Maybe it's how to control people and their movements, and they run two systems parallel. Basically, one is what's taking place, and one is like, okay, this is the timeline when we roll out green energy, and then we annihilate all forms of energy like oil, gas, and coal, and then all that would be left would be this new technology that we're developing, which would be what wind, batteries, and solar. So you could take into account of shutting down all the supply lines. You could take into account the base load of all of that, what devices and how they're developing. Because when you look at, what I'm saying is, when you look at a car and the factory of the car, you can see quite often, if you look at the car, there might be like a bit of plastic in the car. Say it's on the door, or say it's near the window, and they'll be like, it just looks a bit different. So why is that there? There's nothing in it. But it could be because that same model is able to house maybe a computer, maybe a screen, maybe a speaker for a different model. Maybe it's for the next model that they've already put into place. So when they're rolling out, the existing, I guess hard drives aren't a good example because, they're all the same type of hard drive, but they have the ability to be upgraded, but it's already built into the system. Now, it'd be interesting when you start seeing certain cables like appear more often than other cables. You can kind of see it being phased out. So where was I going with that? Basically, if you had the ability to pull certain levers with a supercomputer, you'd have to design it first, And I like to think that's what we're working towards as a species. I do think, though, it's going to make us more lazy in terms of when they rolled out calculators. People stopped being able to do insanely fast maths. Well, some people, insanely fast maths. I know I do. In their mind or on paper or whatever. But then they, just, it doesn't matter. I'll just use Excel. I'll just use a calculator. I mean, some calculations, it gets to the point where it's like, are you really going to be manually calculating all these? It gets to the point where you have to evolve, you have to develop, you have to get smarter and faster. So you can see why we as a species just keep we just keep developing and developing. And so I don't know what it is we're trying to achieve here. I like to think it's not Armageddon, and I'd like to think AI might maybe calculate that if it's but then again, if it's designed to destroy everyone on the planet except itself, in terms of like militaristically speaking, would it not understand that if it takes into account every single other operation taking place, that it would basically annihilate itself, which makes no sense. But again, very broad topic, very interesting stuff though. How can AI supercomputer manage analytic workloads, nodes, circuits, processing? What else? Imagine an AI system that could analyze, I don't know, blockchain data, that could analyze every single transaction taking place and analyze every single possible price point based on every single participant's actions in real time. I mean, that would be the definition of the price in a free market. But imagine if there was basically limited amount of players, limited amount of price points. That's how I would imagine a supercomputer would analyze it. It would understand that there's only so much economic energy in a system, and here's the maximum price it could reach at any given time. And this would be applicable to even things like stocks, even things like the total world money supply. And we are seeing more and more the economy ever intertwined, ever interconnected. And then you sit back and wonder, are we just literally being run by machines at this point? To a degree, we kind of are in a way. Most of us, well, some of us, when you go to work, you might log in and everything you've ever you do is on a computer. And it's like, hang on, you're basically an operator of the computer at this point in time, in some, in some way, shape, or form. It's like, okay, you might be influencing what it is that other workers do, but you're still, in the end, they're still entering data into computers. So we're very focused on technology. So I think technology is going to be I think it's going to be the thing that saves us, but I'm not sure how it's going to save us, because there's all this fear, uncertainty, and doubt, basically. So I thought it is interesting to see the developments with, Google's new super mega computers revealed with quantum updates. It's like this was like a year ago. I haven't been following this.
Hi, I'm here, and I'm guessing that's why he's here.
Hey, Michael.
Hey.
I'm Eric, lead engineer here. I'd like to welcome you to one of the most powerful quantum computing facilities in the world.
Oh, thank you. What's this? Can I touch it?
Yeah, that's a quantum processor. And inside
Imagine if he was like, no, you can't touch it. You break it. You just broke $1 billion quantum computer.
are these actual physical qubits.
Oh, hey, little guy.
Qubits are the fundamental building blocks of quantum computers, but they're incredibly fragile.
Oh.
Even the tiniest particles can disrupt their operation,
Right.
which is why we work so hard to create the optimal environment to keep them safe.
Right, and I'm guessing the optimal environment doesn't include like Cheeto dust. So I'm just gonna put this puppy right back.
Thanks. Let me show you where the clean ones go.
Oh.
So we built this campus to inspire all of our quantum mechanics and to show the world what the future of computing looks like.
Good for you, dude. Look at you, dude.
Thanks.
That's a cool lamp.
It's not a lamp. This is actually a cryostat, and you're looking at the inside of a quantum computer.
Wow, cryostat. I love that word, cryostat. I'm guessing people want to know what makes a cryostat. Eric?
Well, everything you see here, from the wiring to the aluminum, copper, and gold metal stages, have been chosen to create a cold and quiet environment for our quantum processors to operate.
Right. And in English?
It's a fridge for our qubits.
Right. And how cold are we talking about?
We approach near absolute zero, 10 millikelvin to be precise.
Wow.
Which means that parts of our lab are some of the coldest places in the universe.
Wow, colder than Canada?
Yeah, colder than Canada. Well, it's not just temperature that's important. In fact, we want to remove all distractions from our qubits,
Right.
including unwanted electrical and magnetic signals.
Yeah, who wants that, right?
Well, let me show you what the final product looks like.
Is this cryostat?
No, that's not.
So what are they using this? What are they using this for? Like, I hope it's for world peace. You know, most likely it's probably for designing propulsion systems or kinetic weapons. I don't know. Or, as we all remember, we saw in the movie Snowden, that insane system which was able to do what? Which, you know, you can't exactly Google what it is that it does. So these are the things I think we should like maybe just take into consideration, you know, in our everyday lives. I mean, it's a bit hard to do that, especially when you have the way the system's set up. You're 9 to 5, you have your family. By the time you've worked, looked after your family, maybe had some leisure time for yourself or hobby, that's about all you got time for. So a lot of this is most likely going to be wishful thinking. However, like knowing that there's things like this going on in the background is very interesting. Very, very interesting. We got people like Elon Musk doing their thing, but whether or not, you know, we're just simply thinking about these sort of things out loud, or whether or not we're actually like the Elon Musks of the world designing these things to counter whatever they feel they're countering, I can't help but feel there is, you know, a synchronization taking place where people are beginning to question the previously unquestionable. Like, it's like, for instance, with cryptocurrency, or controls over the masses through computing. Previously, people may not have questioned because they thought, well, the government knows what they're doing and they're gonna, you know, keep our best interests at mind. Just like IBM did back in the Holocaust times. Now, so if you are of that opinion that, you know, just let someone else do it for you, then you will never have your free will put into the planet, and therefore you will never have your free will put into the future timeline. And because of that, I can't help but think maybe there's a sort of an effort put into place to try and not silence the masses, but keep them happy, keep them subdued, and keep them docile. Because if you realize that, you know, I don't know, all your tax money was being used to fund endless wars and you didn't like that, and you decided to do something about it, maybe you designed your own internet, magic internet money, or maybe you decide to work in certain fields to try and develop, I don't know, AI, whatever it is you think will help change the future, then, you know, maybe, just maybe, you take the power away from that influence upon your free will. So when you see all the marketing, regardless of the Bud Light, whatever's going on there, but you see the ongoing marketing, it's like, okay, yeah, the food or whatever, that's good, keeps you happy, but then you find out, oh, maybe it's not the healthiest thing to do. So then you decide to, you know, become healthier, you decide to influence your future, like directly. Then you might decide to tell other people, whether they decide or not to listen, whether you can even find anyone else to listen. You know, it's a very hard thing to do. I've heard it's extremely important to actually interact with other people in this day and age, even though it's behind a screen. like we're doing now, or even if you turn the cameras on and you have live streams with each other, that is actually a very important thing to do in this day and age. It brings back the human element to all of this, all of the cyberspace. Now, which is very important to connect with your fellow man, because then you can talk about things you might talk about, you know? You can pass on the stories like the ancients did in the when they used to sit around the cave, the campfire in the caves, you know? Well, they'll pass on stories to the next generation. And they could repeat those stories, and you find out they have meaning behind the story, you know? That sort of stuff. Whereas, if we're in a digital ghetto, controlled by digital money, controlled by potentially individuals who are programming AI to produce, for all we know, this particular story, it's a very different future. It's one of free will. It's one of the ability to speak up, stand up for whatever you think is right, versus just, you know, being another sheeple in the system, being fed through the meat grinder. You know, I think Stefan Molyneux had a pretty good short video about, you know, the point of our existence or something like that. It literally has people being fed through a meat grinder. A cartoon kind of shows us all what, you know, for example, companies might be like. It might be an example of what, you know, universities are like. Things like that, you know. You could get full, you know, evil with it. Take the other side and go, hey, hang on, how could you influence other people? How could you make them do what you want them to do? And think about it on a very large scale. How could you, you know, control the masses? It might be easier if the people aren't so intelligent. It might be easier if people have a shorter attention span. It might be easier if there's a lot of distractions and noise going on, so you're unable to focus, you know. It might be easier if you see another person, and because of the way they look and your perception of them, you don't listen to them, or you automatically start assuming things about them, you know. Imagine if everyone was just like, when they saw other people, the first thing they noticed, instead of being what they looked like or what they sounded like, was what they were actually saying, you know. And before that, maybe they had to get to know the person, you know. So yeah, it's a very interesting planet, very interesting world. I guess to cover two things, after thinking about what is AI supercomputing, how it could be used to control the masses, is it already happening, how new is this AI technology, will we ever know? Before covering that, after covering that, we'll have a look at, you know, time for tough questions for Gary Gensler about crypto. Now, imagine if you were able to trick the masses by rolling out a law that no one even knew existed, and getting that law signed into existence, signing it into law, making, you know, and making that happen without people understanding it's taking place because we're too distracted, without people understanding what it means for them. It could be possible. And if you're in that position, you might think, well, I've decided to shrink the packages of the food over time because no one said anything. Yeah, they might whinge a little bit about it, but they need this food, so I'm going to continue to do it. Imagine if they then decide about rules and regulations. They're going to just roll it out. Like, what if the day comes where they decide that this digital dollar, or the central bank digital currency, is a thing that is just going to happen and you don't have a vote about it? What are we all going to do? Is there anything we can do at that point in time? You can say all sorts of things. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. But isn't prevention better than cure? Is why I don't understand, like, why people don't try harder to learn about this stuff. Just generally speaking, like, I looked into some of it. I'm like, oh, this is pretty complex, because if you're going to comment to the SEC, you actually have to be, they would respect it more if you come at them with the correct terminology so they can actually understand what you're saying. But if you say it in a general way, you end up being as bad as them, because they're saying in a general way, well, this is what we think of crypto. But then the realization comes to existence that they don't even know what they're talking about. Maybe that's why they're so vague, and maybe that's why they are so general about it. But are they going to admit that? Do you think the top person, well, I guess it's the top person, is actually going to admit that? I mean, they might ask other areas of businesses what their opinion is of it. Most likely they do. And they would, put their feedback into it. So let's have a look. I found this article. It's time for tough questions to Gary Gensler about crypto, right? And they're saying basically when federal regulators seriously overreach, other two branches of the government have the duty to hold them in check. They do, but are they? This is the thing. We seem to be evolving and changing, moving away from these simple checks and balances across the globe, Like what happened? I keep harping on this. What happened with the pandemic? They're now realizing maybe it was an overreaction and overreach. But it doesn't matter because they said it was illegal. I'm like, okay. This is how we're going to exist now. We're not going to exist as a human species. We're going to exist in a little cubicle, and the cubicle dictates to the world how the world should run. Okay, right. That's the planet we live on now. Okay, fair enough. And then you wonder why people get frustrated and decide to get involved politically and peacefully. And maybe they protest, maybe they push back, maybe they write some letters, etc., etc., etc. Says that's the way the founding fathers intended our system to work. So US based. The Securities Exchange Commission is the latest regulator that has gone way past the mark of waging war on cryptocurrency technology. The agency has filed an avalanche of enforcement actions and warnings against companies big and small in the crypto space, claiming they are selling securities and that should have been registered like stock offerings. Okay. It is time that Congress fulfill their constitutional duty and rein in the SEC. Okay, so the heart of the issue revolves around claims by the SEC chairman Gary Gensler that many crypto companies are non-compliant and in violation of federal securities law. He believes that they should come forward and register their tokens, whether they issue them or not. Whether they issue, it doesn't matter whether they issue them or not, or it's just code, and I don't know, free speech and everything like that. Constitutional rights and all if you're in the US, and asserts that all sales involved in these tokens are securities transactions, even between parties completely unrelated to the company being targeted. The reality is quite different. Evidence has come out in several cases that show the SEC's legal arguments are ridiculous. So, using supercomputers potentially, or using the dumbed down masses who do not have any ability to understand what is taking place in front of their face, who have a short attention span, who are too busy, too busy and tired because they have their own things going on in their life to be able to have the energy to fight this because of the system, the way it's taking place. How is one individual going to fight an entire SEC enforcement agency on them by themselves? It's most not likely. That's probably not going to happen. Maybe if a lot of people though reply, a lot of people get together and can see and awaken to what is taking place, then there's likely to be change. But only then. Until that point in time comes, all of us will be subject to what is dished out to us. These are the cards we are given. Simple as that. Now, it's almost like our whole systems in place have been designed in a certain way, Crypto tokens that have a utility are not like stocks and don't give their users any voting rights in a company. They are not securities, and Gensler has no right to regulate them. But see, if people don't know this, and this goes through, what's the point? Is there a point? Furthermore, the SEC can't punish secondary market holders of cryptocurrencies for the actions of an unrelated company, like it's trying to do in case after case. Okay, so this, I think this goes on Twitter. This is insane. Sorry, I'm going off topic of supercomputers. Why did you not let me? Really? 17? I thought there was increased Twitter. This is just insane. This is just one more freedom being taken away from us. Now, I know I'm still streaming, but I thought I'd do it live. This is why supercomputers can't deal with memes too well. They don't understand if it's serious or not. They still don't. They won't understand why people make the decisions that they make. It's a great unknown, apparently, in marketing.
And they all get groupthink. And
they still can't determine why someone, like, why did I just decide?
This same policy rolled out across the world, and if you disagree with it, you were the black sheep. But it turns out the black sheep was correct. Now, I will continue on here. The second problem concerns basic accountability. While the Fed chair does appear before Congress twice a year, those hearings are not conducted and fix what really matters. Federal design implementation.
To justify why I feel free speech is being ripped on across the damn globe, especially when it came to the jab. Undermines the First Amendment in the US. Where is it? Because the release makes everybody involved in the relevant blockchain ecosystem part of a group. It creates significant ambiguity around what speech requires government's pre-approval, which will unavoidably chill constitutionally protected speech. So you're telling me, SEC, that I cannot talk to someone else by code? Like, you're going to intervene in my private life and come in and tell me that what you're doing, this communication that you're doing, you know, we need to regulate that. This is, can we not design a supercomputer to point out to them what they're doing is, you know, is wrong? Okay, anyway. Thank you for sticking with me if you're still watching. I tend to do this. I have a very short attention span. Thank you to all the, you know, everything that I've consumed over my life. And how it has affected me in the long term to be the person that I am today. Imagine if I was never given access to whatever items that take away from people's attention span, you know, which maybe, just maybe, we could know and learn about, but we're probably too distracted to understand. Oh, anyway, Gensler claims that when progress past the 1933 Securities Act, it painted the definition. So they painted the definition of a security with a broad brush, and that means, this is the same wording I'm hearing here in Australia. It might already fall under the existing regulatory agencies, the enforcement arm, under the existing definition. Yeah, that sounds good. Who cares that the legal argument is ridiculous and, it impinges on, like, in some cases, the First Amendment enshrined in, your constitution in the US, etc. No biggie, I guess. Like, dude, are you sure that's what the route you want to be taking? It doesn't seem like that's going to please people in that particular country. It doesn't seem like it's pleasing me, analyzing it from Australia, looking at it going, what is that? What is going on? That's not right. Like when everyone got mandated, I was watching going, that's not right. And you try and explain this to people, and no one listens, they're too busy. With a broad brush, and that means he has the authority to declare every token a security without new legislation. Funny. You're funny, SEC. Okay, so this one needs to be tweeted out. I'm like hoping someone listens. We need to push back peacefully and politically, get in these people's faces and be like, bro, do you understand what it is you're actually doing? Because it doesn't feel like you actually do. And when the whole world is, as we all saw, when the whole world believes something so strongly, it comes to fruition. Everyone thought they were gonna pass away from the word that cannot be said. Maybe that's what everyone thought. It's absolutely insane. Now, where am I? Some cool stuff going on the internet. Now, in fact, nothing in the 80-year-old law, nor any Supreme Court decision since, has given SEC the authority to declare a cryptocurrency itself is always a security no matter how it's used or transacted. The brush was never that broad, and Congress in 1933 never contemplated digital assets or their many complexities if that don't fit neatly into existing rules. So they're just changing it, it might kind of fit under, so we'll just say it does. Are you serious? Like, I'm pretty sure you could ask a law specialist chatbot, and it would tell you you're wrong. Although we are seeing an attack, a full-on assault on cryptocurrencies. Now I could add a conspiracy. It's because of there's a big supercomputer that they ask how can they stop this cryptocurrency, and this is their best attempt. Maybe, just maybe, this is their best attempt. And if people do not, try and push back, then maybe they'll just have their way. Even though, as it's written in black and white here, it doesn't seem very logical or legal. Hello. Mentality. what is happening. Okay, so I'll continue to read this article and point out, after having a look at some supercomputing stuff and Elon Musk's attempt to battle AI head on for whatever reason, and how we are basically all in the position we are in now because of our own free will, and it's quite clear that the ability to impose restrictions on us and mandates on us and take away our freedoms is quite clear, and so then that calls into question our free will and is it being impinged on, Nothing much. How have you been? Yeah, chilling. Just chilling. And then it goes on. The fact Gensler insistence that companies come in and register has no basis in reality either. So I'm just covering some information about why it's time to get tough on Gary Gensler and the SEC about their treatment of cryptocurrencies and the way in which they present their information is wrong, even though they're going to argue that it is not wrong. And if they can get away with it, then it appears they will try and do so, which is frustrating because just maybe some cryptocurrency that is not a security, that never will be a security, or some cryptocurrencies that are not set up for scams and that are not set up for, nefarious means, that are purely to, I would argue, enlighten anyone who wishes to partake in it because of their free will. I would say that those cryptocurrencies might just help bring about an enlightening of humanity if people can understand this. But instead, it appears we have, for whatever reason, an enforcement agency in one particular country thinking that they can just make up the laws as they go along. And this article is pointing that out. But yeah, that's about it. It's a bit frustrating because trying to explain it requires a lot of focus and concentration in terms of previous knowledge that you may want to take into account, because then once you understand that, you might be able to understand why they might be going after things like that could promote freedom, why they would be going after freedom of speech on the internet, why they would be rolling out certain bills such as the Restrict Act whilst attacking cryptocurrency, whilst going after oil and gas for some reason, whilst trying to start wars across the world, whilst selling weapons to every country under the sun, whilst funding both sides of every war. Think about it. Who currently, is there not a financial system in place? Yes or no? Yes, there is. Is the financial system allowing for these endless wars to take place? Yes, it is. But why are we doing this? I honestly don't know. Maybe it's just so complex one man can't understand and only a supercomputer can. That's why I thought I'd bring up the topic of AI supercomputers at this point in time. I also covered briefly profiles that are being built on everyone who goes on the internet, whether they know it or not. Whether it's as simple as, purchasing habits and ads, or it could be more in depth, maybe everything you've ever done is stored in a database somewhere. Who knows? And if you were to build a supercomputer, maybe, just maybe, you need to understand people's profiles, you need to understand supply chains, you need to understand how things are made, what they're used for, and keep drilling down further and further and further. Then once you understand all of that, you could inject things to sort of influence the future. So whether that be you don't want cryptocurrency, whether that be you don't want people to be free, and imagine a future where the government is so not needed because the majority of people follow the law, and the majority of people, do the right thing, and maybe energy is free. Maybe there's like very little pollution, and maybe the concept of it's just pure abundance, and there's still the drive to develop things like supercomputers and space travel and things like that. In that future, I don't think the current people in control actually have the ability to, in that system, there's not much use for them. That they would be encouraged to like just leave everyone alone, because it's like a utopia. Now that's a very far-fetched dream, but like I said before, instead of a society where if someone sounds different or looks different, they get judged in a certain way, if it was purely based on what they're doing, we would have a completely different society. But it appears for some reason the opposite is taking place. We need more controls put on us. We need more freedoms taken away from us. It now seems to be they tried to stop movement of people. It also seems to be that they want more division, whether that be race, religion, sexual orientation now, political leanings. Every single thing, it appears as if they're trying to divide us all. And when people are divided, it's easier to conquer them. Whether that be a nation, whether that be multiple nations, whether that be an ideology, I don't know. But I really think that we need to put them in check. Seriously. Now, moving on, this article, because I think real decentralized freedom of speech cryptocurrency is actually a key part in promoting freedom and helping humanity reach an enlightenment. This is why I think they're trying to shut it down. This article points out that putting a necessary check on the SEC's overreach in court takes years and tens of millions of dollars that a lot of these companies don't have. Okay, so this is the play. Okay, years and years of legal battles and millions of dollars. People don't have this, and then what? If you don't battle, then what? SEC wins. Are you kidding me? That's insane. Gensler instead appears intent on forcing them into bankruptcy and into closing their doors. He did this to the New Hampshire-based company Library, which had acquired to use crypto technology to challenge YouTube as a content platform. Oh, we don't want to be challenging, the companies. Like I was talking so happily about, Google's mega supercomputers, but you look back and say, hang on, what is Google? Google is evil. Google is evil. Google is evil.
But it contains everything you've just seen inside, and custom control electronics, all of which were designed.
We'll have a brief look at that. The censoring of YouTube, Google.
And built by our team here at Google. Wait. Is this a Bob Ross? Is he on the team? Tell me he's on the team. He's not on the team. Okay. But this mural is our homage to Mother Nature. See, quantum is the language of nature, and we're learning to speak it here. It will enable us to run precise simulations of the natural world, unlocking answers that would otherwise remain unknown.
Okay, let's just, I'll put this normal speed. Would otherwise remain unknown.
Quantum is the language of nature, and we're learning to speak it here. It will enable us to run
I would say mathematics is the language of nature, but anyway.
Precise simulations of the natural world, unlocking answers that would otherwise remain unknown.
Okay, so let me see if I get this right. Okay, so these qubits are really smart, right? But they're really picky about their work environment, so you got to put them in a lamp, right? But even then, they're like, no, I don't want anybody eating any Cheetos around me. And they're like, I'm sorry, okay, I didn't know, right? So then
as soon as you look at them, they change the result.
You got to wrap them in like this Bob Ross blanket of love, right? And then you keep them there until they can tell us how to think like the Earth. Am I right?
Yeah, it's pretty close.
Okay, you know what this is? This is the power button, and I want to start it.
We're not quite there yet. I'm glad you're on board.
Okay.
To date, we've reached the first milestone, beyond classical computational capabilities.
This is us.
Yeah, we're here. Everything you've seen here today is what we're using to build
This is us so far that you know of.
to our next milestone, an error-corrected logical qubit.
Right.
And from there, we'll tile thousands of those together to reach our ultimate goal, an error-corrected quantum computer.
Right, that's my goal too.
Well, you're in luck. We're building a team to assemble all the right ingredients, all right here in the Quantum AI campus that you just helped us unveil. So thank you very much, Michael.
No, you know what? Thank you, and thank you for everyone that's joining us. I want to leave you with a couple of my favorite words that I just learned.
I just found that stuff interesting. Anyway, pivoting back to the SEC's overreach and the playbook in which and how they're going to wreck us, try and wreck us all. Not just people who like cryptocurrency, not just people who like freedoms, not just people who think that, you know, when government does bad things that sucks, or not just people who think, you know, I don't know, maybe Assange should be free, you know, maybe like you know, those the persecution of the press, maybe that's a bad thing in a free and open nation, you know, across the world, because, you know, it kind of reminds me of, you know, some tyrannical governments and things like that. I guess the counter argument to that is, oh, he released like things that were, you know, nation secrets potentially, but I can't remember the wording. But if, you know, isn't that the duty of the press to report on things, to when it does come to public light, it becomes public in the public realm, to like shed light on these things? Shouldn't that be protected? I don't know. I think it should be. That's not to say people should be going around just trying to do this like insane stuff. I think we saw recently it was a leak of some sort, and it was like some dude who leaked. I'm like, why? You know, why? Maybe he was just set up. Who knows? Moving on. Gensler instead appears to be intent on forcing them into bankruptcy and closing their doors. So this is the, you know, this is the play. He recently did this to the New Hampshire-based company Library. Yeah, we covered that. YouTube as a content platform. Its founder shared with the court how he begged the SEC for guidance on this is okay. So its founder shared with the court how he begged the SEC for guidance on how to gain the agency's acceptance for 5 years and never got an answer until it sued and bankrupted him. Okay, so we have this amazing innovation, and the answer to the amazing innovation is to be sued into oblivion and sued into bankruptcy. This is how we stop freedom. No, sorry. This is how we protect you all and make you all safe. Like this is really what is going on. Like that doesn't feel free to me. In my gut, something says that's not right. In my gut, it says I do not want this future, this type of dystopian tyrannical government future. Now, despite a plea for clarity from the judge in open court, the agency refused to clarify how any company can avoid Library's fate. So, you know, like I said, you can travel down the road, put up some speed cameras, you know, but we're not going to tell you the speed, and we might change the speed every couple of k's or miles or so, you know. You never know. It's a surprise. That sounds insane. Time is on the side of the abusive federal regulator if the judicial is the only branch of the government doing its constitutional duty to provide a check on the executive when it overreaches like this. Even when these companies are ultimately vindicated years later. So people that, you know, were right get vindicated years later, but in the meantime they get bankrupt, sued into oblivion, things like that. The damage is already done. As legal experts point out, sovereign immunity rights exempt the SEC from being sued for damages caused by such abusive behavior. So they've got sovereign immunity as well. Perfect, you know, perfect. Similar to, you know, when other agencies try and help, you know, I'm pretty sure they have a similar sovereign immunity. But what do I know? This is why the legislative branch needs to step up and do its part on providing that constitutional check. The House Financial Services Committee, which has oversight on the SEC for crypto policy, has scheduled Gensler to testify before them tomorrow. Now, it's not the time to be timid about what he's doing to American companies and billions of retail asset holders who have no protection against his agency unchecked behavior. This is not the time to just be like, oh, everything will be fine. We'll just mind our own business. You know? I think it's time. I really think it's time. Not just every single person in cryptocurrency needs to understand this at some level, whether that be the lowest level, whether that be the highest level. and push back on this. It is time for tough questions and accountability. And it's time that Congress set clear rules for the road of crypto so the SEC goes back to regulating under the law and not just on a whim. So they can't just make it up as I keep saying that you can go down this road. You can go down this road, but you know, we're not going to tell you what the speed limit is. And we have the latest cameras that can tell what you're doing in your car, you know. And even what sort of, you know, engine the car has. We might change the limitation on the engine that it has. It's just, I don't know. I honestly don't know what this is. Like, is this normal? In my gut, something says this is not normal. And I feel like people are too scared. I feel like people aren't informed. I feel like people just are not aware of this sort of stuff, you know? Hopefully, this little tiny stream goes on the internet, someone sees it, and it triggers something in their mind, you know, that triggers something else and has like a flow-on effect. And somehow we change the world. You know, you never know, we might just do that. Now, so that's my little spiel. That's my little spiel on cryptocurrency, how it could be controlled. I've covered a lot there. How we can be controlled, how we could be controlled even better, how we need to influence the future, otherwise our free will is basically null and void. Endless wars, how it's being funded, governmental overreach, how it should be pushed back, freedom of the press, free Assange. What else did I cover? Like, you know, a humanity where we have free energy, abundance is normal, and we're developing, you know, AI that can help us solve medical issues about the human race, possibly planning out a future shaping of our species, space travel. What else? Yeah, the gut feeling that something's not right, we need to push back on this, is very strong. Now, I probably left out a few things there, but this is a thing as well. California utilities seek to charge people based on income, not energy. So if we all thought that we needed, you know, the evil central bank digital currency would come along and would, you know, stop us from, you know, living our day and going about our daily business, because, you know, it would tell us that we can't leave the house or something like that for whatever reason. Imagine if, you know, you don't need a central bank digital currency, but companies, just like they did with the mandates, decided they're going to roll out their own usage issues. So they might say, okay, we're not going to bill you on usage, we're going to bill you on income. And so you're going to have to tell us how much you make, and then you're going to have to, you know, show us and prove to that. And then each year, based on your tax return, we might just pull it from the government ourselves, you know, because we might get these new special powers. And, you know, we won't get hacked or nothing. You won't lose all your data. I'm sure that won't happen. And I'm sure that, you know, you'll be happy with being charged on how much you earn. And I'm just in shock, because if that could be applied to electricity, isn't electricity pretty important? Imagine if they decided to do that with food. So if you earn more, I mean, technically the answer to inflation is you earn a lot of money, and you have a lot of money, and inflation won't affect you as much, right? But imagine if all of a sudden you have a lot of money, and then they decide to not just hit you with inflation, but also to decide that you have to pay more at the gas pump, more at the checkout. Like, what? That does not seem like the utopian future I want to exist in. I think people maybe should push back on this and point out, not in a crazy loonbird conspiratorial manner, which my stuff borderlines, to be honest. But it's very hard to understand, probably to normal people, because they'll just say, but people, if they earn more, they should pay more. And if people earn less, they should pay less. It's like, no, I'm not pointing that out. I'm pointing out the ability to do this is wrong. It was the whole argument with the jab. But you're trying to save people. I said, no, I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm saying there's not enough data out to actually back up your claims about how this is effective. I want to see more results. And I said, no one's actually told me what this thing is in the mainstream media, any media. No one's pointed out what this is. And so therefore, if I don't know what this is, how can I defend against it? Like, it was as simple as that. And pure incompetence, pure incompetence stumbled us all into this dystopian nightmare we are tiptoeing blindly towards. We've got, what do we got? We have the SEC trying to sue people into oblivion, even though later on it turns out that they were wrong and the people who they were suing were actually correct in relation to this article. But who cares about that, right? Who cares? There's no biggie. Yeah, that's the doom and gloom done. Now, what do we got? I just can't wait. I just can't wait for Pulse Chain to melt faces. And while all of this is going on, with all the delays that are going on and things like that, I hope people get so wealthy and so rich, and the abundance is so much that they then maybe have the ability to push back on this. Maybe they have the ability to start their own research company into supercomputing on how it would be programmed in terms of the data points which should be looked at. In all honesty, it might turn out that you have AI just training AI because they would be more efficient. They don't sleep, they don't rest, they don't need to be fed. They might have errors, they might have biases, but if you can program them out of that, I think they even call it, what do they call it? An error. What was the name of that thing? They're looking for a error-based. Why would you drop out, seriously? What the hell? Live on stream it glitches.
Our compute This is a cryostat.
Nice.
This is the language of nature, and we're
Around me, like I'm
pretty close.
okay. You know what this?
Yeah, we're here. Everything you've seen here today is what we're using to build to our next milestone, an error-corrected logical qubit.
Right.
And from there, we'll tile thousands of those together to reach our ultimate goal, an error-corrected quantum computer.
Error corrected. That's the one. Error corrected. We're going to self-correct those errors. Alright, that's about it. Unless you got anything, chat. If anyone's even still here. Yeah. If not, I'll close this one out. And when you see something that's not right, point it out. Point it out. Oh my god. Because if you don't, no one else will. Simple. Cool. All right. Peace.